Interviewing skills are essential for landing a job. This lesson has some tips and strategies for effective interviewing from preparation through delivery. In this lesson, you learn about two different types of interviews, traditional and behavioral. You learn how to prepare for an interview, dress for an interview, behave during an interview, and then you actually participate in a mock interview for a sample job. You practice asking appropriate questions of the interviewer. Finally, you evaluate your skills as an interviewer and interviewee. A job interview is a conversation that occurs between a potential employer and a job applicant. During the job interview, the employer hopes to determine whether or not the applicant is suitable for the job, while the applicant tries to learn more about the position while also impressing the employer. It can be a casual conversation or a formal series of discussions with one or more people from a company. In small companies, you may meet with one person during an interview. In larger companies, you may meet with a person from the Human Resources Department first, and depending on how well you do, you may be invited back to speak with the hiring manager for the job. Larger companies may have interview panels with multiple people who cooperate to make a decision. Whether casual or formal, with one person or many, interviewing skills and tactics are essential to locking in an offer on a job. In the past, interviews were a process of answering questions about what you have done or plan to do, such as, what jobs have you held in the past? Why do you want to work for this company? Are you willing to travel as part of your job? Recently, however, interviews have evolved into what is known as the behavioral interview. In this type of interview, the employer asks questions to determine if the candidate has the skills necessary to fulfill the job position. The basic premise of the behavioral interview is that past performance is a good predictor of future performance. In other words, the employer wants to know what you can do. Do you have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do the job? There are numerous internet resources that highlight types of interviews and interviewing skills. Entering the search keywords interviewing skills into an internet search engine will return excellent resources that explain the traditional versus the behavioral interview. Visit the websites on this slide for more information about traditional and behavioral interviews. Traditional interview questions span topics including qualifications, academic preparation, career interests, and experience. The goal is to figure out what you have done and what you plan to do. Sample traditional interview questions include, tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? What do you know about our company? How would your former colleagues describe you? Examine the questions on this and the next slide. Behavioral interviews include questions about hypothetical or actual situations. Behavioral interviews often start with, tell me about a time when, or tell me about a situation when you had to. The idea is that the employer can predict your performance by understanding how you performed in the past under similar circumstances. Examine the behavioral interview questions on the next few slides. You may think that the interview process only includes the 30 minutes or so that you spend with the interviewer asking questions and talking about the position. In reality, the interview process starts long before the actual interview and ends after you shake hands and say goodbye. The four main stages are before the interview, day of the interview, during the interview, after the interview. The next slides review each of these stages. Before the interview, you need to prepare. Learn as much as you can about the company, the business, and the requirements for the job. Know your own qualifications, personally and professionally. Know every detail about your resume and be able to answer any question about it. Prepare a list of behavioral and traditional questions you may be asked to answer for the position and practice answering them. On the day of the interview, dress professionally, neatly, and conservatively. Plan to arrive for the interview a few minutes early. When meeting your interviewer, remember the importance of first impressions. Stand up and shake hands firmly, not too strong or too weak. Greet the interviewer with a smile and make and keep eye contact with him or her. During the interview, your body language is very important. You can convey positive language by sitting up straight and leaning towards your interviewer. You should show some excitement and enthusiasm towards the job opportunity. Do not fidget or tap your pen. Try to keep relaxed. Finally, continue to make eye contact throughout the interview. When answering questions during the interview, give specific examples that highlight your best qualities. If you do not understand a question, ask for clarification. Never guess the answer to a question. If you do not know the answer to a question, do not answer it. Finally, ask questions and be knowledgeable about the company. During the interview, use clear communication skills. Make sure your interviewer can hear you. Pronounce your words clearly and correctly. Do not use slang or any jargon that would be offensive to your audience. No dudes, my last job was lousy, yeah, or huh. The most important rule of interviewing is to always be positive. Imagine that you are an interviewer and you ask a candidate why he left his last job. What would you think if he said, "Because the company was a terrible place to work, the work was boring, and my manager always took credit for my work"? The candidate truly may have had a difficult experience at his last job, but would you want to hire a person exhibiting this much negativity? Would the candidate say negative things about your company and even you in the future? Probably. In a job interview, it is important to be positive about yourself, to be positive about the job opportunity, and to make positive remarks about former jobs, colleagues, and teachers. If your previous experiences were negative, try to frame them in a positive way. For example, I left my last job because I was looking for a bigger challenge, one with larger responsibilities. At the end of an interview, the interviewer often asks whether or not you have any questions. This is an indication that the interview is almost over, but it also provides an opportunity for the interviewer to find out what you are interested in knowing. For example, what are the primary responsibilities of the job? What personal characteristics are needed for the job? Does the position require travel? The end of the interview also gives you the opportunity to show the interviewer what you have learned about the company. For example, I saw the press release about your new software product last week. What is the target market for the product? At the very end of your interview, if appropriate, you may want to ask, "When can I expect to hear from you?" Don't forget to smile warmly, shake the interviewer's hand firmly, and thank him or her for her time. If you follow these tips, along with the others presented in this lesson, you will leave the interviewer with a positive impression of you. Provided the interviewer sees a good fit between you and the job, you may be hired. The interview rubric is a guide for you to use to prepare for your interview. It will help you assess not only what you've done right, but also what you need to work on in the future.